Frequency 1836-482. Armarium Vox Aeterna. The Strangeman's No Access Radio. Episode 5. Mistakes were made. Welcome back to the Strange Men's No Access Radio. I am currently Jock Tuckaby, famous skin hater. But will I remain that way? Stay tuned for no answers and a pop quiz. Mistakes. We all make them. You especially. Did you know that, on average, people make 40 mistakes a day? That's not entirely accurate. You, the one listening to this right now, are a noted outlier in our many studies. When we remove you from the equation, the updated stats say that people make 2 to 5 mistakes a day. Wow, that is a huge margin of error. What mistakes have you already made today? Maybe without even knowing. Fun math facts aside, let's get back on to mistakes in general. Now, as stated previously, the Strange Men's Association has been around for nearly 2,400 years, so it was only a matter of time before we made some mistakes of our own. So every couple of weeks, we get together a collection of all of our mistakes. Misfiled memos, rotten fruit, papers that we stapled wrong, a few parking tickets, and 17 different articles of the Geneva Convention, and we put them all in a box. At the end of the week, we get all the boxes together in one big pile, and then we light them on fire and then never talk about it again. Well, today's box burning day, and before we throw them all into the fire, my crew has decided to take a box for ourselves, and we're going to root through it and see if there's anything interesting inside. Let me just bring it up to the table. Wow, this is pretty light this month. Alright, let's get started. Ooh, to start off with, here's one of our mistakes. I've got a recorded radio broadcast that we did yesterday. Let's have a listen. Where's my containing gang at? Because we just got another thing contained. Alright, here's all the official stuff you need to know. In fact, the site director asked me to specifically broadcast all details of this new one, so let's see how it goes. The creature in question being contained is called a fart goblin. He's currently being held in a standard miniature humanoid containment cell. He is allowed to freely communicate with any on-site staff, but most usually decide to avoid him due to his noxious odor. The goblin does not need any food or water, and typically does not adhere to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, nor Mitchell's hierarchy of bees. But despite this, the fart goblin can't die. The fart goblin won't die. The fart goblin rejects dying. Better to just leave him alone. During interviews, the fart goblin is generally very cordial towards staff and has stated numerous times that it wants to be contained, and that it's been his dream to be contained, and that he won't ever try to escape, ever. That's it. Seems to be a pretty open and shut case, to be honest. Oh, there appears to be a recovery log here. Alright, let's check it out. The formful was first brought to the attention of the association in 2017, when 3 college teens tried to summon a fire angel to purge the world of sins. They immediately died of being on fire due to the fire angel they summoned. It's unclear whether the students created the formful themselves or whether it was already a thing in our world that just happened to latch onto their summoning ritual. A recovery team was sent in to contain it, codenamed Skater Boys, after a video of a massive spontaneous forest fire was broadcasted by local news. When the recovery team requested backup, they misidentified the creature as a fire angle, and when the heavily armed backup arrived, they saw the formful, taking the shape of a line, bent at a 90-degree rotation on fire. The formful was eventually contained through the commandeering of a few fire trucks, and through further testing, we determined that the entity takes the form of what the most amount of people believe the entity is. If 100 people believed the entity was a stapler, then the entity would appear as a stapler. But if 101 people believed that the entity was a stapler with a knife, then it would appear as a stapler with a knife. This is why extra precautions had to be taken when crafting this public document. If we can get enough people to think that the formful is just a fart goblin, then we can make sure that the entity won't become too much of a problem to contain. If information about the formful's true nature was released to a large number of people, then it would mean potentially catastrophic things for Site 13. Huh, well that's interesting. Does anyone smell... Yeah, so... First of all, my bad. Probably should have stopped reading around the middle of that recovery log, but hey, that wasn't entirely my fault because, second of all, that recovery log was supposed to be classified, and I shouldn't have been able to see it. One of our IT people wanted to do a rebellion thing against the association and declassified all the files, but no one ever wanted to access any of the forbidden documents because they feared what might happen to them if they were ever caught looking at any classified information. People only found out about the security breach when the formful blew up a containment wing and most of the site with it. No one currently alive was fatally injured during the explosion, so there was a plus for us. You know what, let's move on. Okay, now this one appears to be a record of one Kathy Bergson and her experiences with the Three Pines Shopping Center in Leadville, Colorado. Extracted directly from the subject with the story extraction machine, made to make eyewitness accounts less rambly. Even examiners get bored, folks. And here we go. I was going to watch a movie with a friend. I think it was the newest Star Wars, but I didn't remember much because throughout the entire movie, I just really needed to use the bathroom. I was holding it in for a long time, sitting there in an uncomfortable silence as a spaceship blew up another spaceship, or something. But I think at the climax I decided I had enough and left the theater. When I was done and got out of the stall, I noticed that the bathroom mirror seemed to reflect less. Like, I know that this was a public restroom in a mall, what do you expect? But when I first went past, it looked fine. There appeared to be less detail in my reflection, like steam had fogged up the glass, but when I tried to wipe it away, well, it wouldn't come off. The glass just seemed built like that. It was certainly weird, and at the time I just tried to ignore it. But when I left the bathroom, everything else was off. The concessions part of the theater was both jagged and too smooth, like everything was made out of plastic. The pictures above the counter, which had the prices of hot dogs, ice creams, and chips, were now blurry and unreadable. The window to the popcorn machine that was supposed to show the cooking yellowish kernels now looked like a 2D image of what was happening inside of it. I could still feel the carpet underneath me, but when I looked down, all I saw was a flat rug covering over my feet, as if my shoes weren't even there. But the worst part was the people. They were just as blocky and plasticky as the rest of the world, but they felt even worse. I think it was the fact that they tried so hard to be people. I saw two of them just stare straight ahead at each other. My best guess is that they were trying to look like they were having a conversation. It was like I was in a world full of mannequins, full of things that gave off the same physicality as a normal person, but who were something else. Like some recognizable people who were just trapped in their own people-adjacent bodies. I ran as fast as I could, but the mall was the same as the theater. The water fountain spurted out flat, see-through prisms of water. When I looked outside, the office buildings that surrounded us were just black boxes. I couldn't see that far out the window due to the oppressive white fog that had enveloped the area. And the people, they were still looking at me with their nothing faces, bearing into me with what I thought was concern. I just kept running and running and running until... I see why it's in the mistakes box. The statement just got off there. I think someone lost the last page. Nah, well, whoever's responsible probably faced a fate much worse than Kathy Bergson. Or maybe not, who knows. Reading ahead, the reason why this bad boy is going to curl up in flames is that, while originally thought to be a supernatural encounter, it in fact had a perfectly rational explanation. Which is good to know. Moving on. Alright, I've got something. Here's a list of general mistakes, because sometimes we can't get evidence for all of them, especially if we light the evidence on fire every week. Alex the janitor applied too much water to one area of the cafeteria, which caused junior researcher Rowley to drop his newly constructed Lego train set, which had erased hours of hard work and sore thumbs. A small hole was formed due to the water damage in the 12th floor bathroom, which went unnoticed for a few days, but that was enough time to let a lot of mice and flies in, and much more dangerous things out. Holly lied to Dr. Pritchard about reciprocated feelings for him, and now has to spend a good solid 4 months lying to him and herself due to her cowardice and, all the while, pining after the woman they both know will make her feel complete. Junior researcher Rowley spent 18 hours working on his Lego train set, which would have been time better spent working on his Lego Hyperflux time castration field. Doug the sound guy will forget to remind the host that the recording of his past has stopped, and the sounds of a mouth attempting to imitate a wet fart will play in the ears of several people. Jared has forgotten to pet the dog. Doug the sound guy has not and will not feel physical attraction to anyone around him. This will not go unpunished. Doug the sound guy, when prompted to play the sounds of one cricket feeling the worst agony of its life, accidentally played a clip of 2 crickets bonding together during the worst agony of either of their existences on Earth, completely ruining the mood. Doug the sound guy took too many— Hey Doug, how many times are you in this thing? Yeah, like, you're in most of these notes, and this thing goes on for a while. Just what have you been doing? He can't answer me because the room is soundproof and I've locked the door this time since last week's incident. But anyway, back to business. Okay, here's a family-friendly one. Tape recording of Giles Clark regarding sinister happenings. I'll slap this in now.
I was traveling abroad in Belarus for the holidays. Mostly sightseeing, eating different food, and I went inside a castle or 2 at some point. I was planning to go motel hopping in between destinations, and on day 3 I decided to stay at a small motel in Melodiechna. And when I say small, I mean small. I think there were only 4 rooms in the entire complex. The woman who handed me the keys at the front desk was nice enough, but seemed tired by her day at work, but I could also detect something else in her eyes. At first, I thought it was just anger or irritation, but looking back and examining her eyes closely, I could see that it was a disappointment, and not just a banal. My favorite TV show had a disappointing ending, or my kids run into a glass sliding door type of disappointment. It was more of a cosmic disappointment, an all-encompassing disappointment, and oh, how far humanity has fallen kind of disappointment. I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I had a long day and I was going to have another tomorrow. I needed to sleep. The woman at the front desk told me my room was number 4, 2nd floor, and gave me the key to what I thought was going to be my room. But when I reached my suite, the key that she gave me wouldn't unlock the door. Each room had a number on its door, and the keys would have the number on the corresponding door. My door had a big 4 on it, but the key I had a little number 3 on it. Now, I know I could have easily gone down to the woman at the reception desk and asked for the number 4 key, but like I said, I was exhausted, and I thought that no one would be in room 3. I thought I had the only key. The curtains were closed, so there was no way I could have known, no way I could have guessed that behind door number 3 was people, a group of them, bound by leather straps in positions that I would not have thought possible. Some were bound, gagged, and hoisted by complex contraptions of ropes and bars. At the center of it all was one person standing over the absolute vulgarity of it all. I ran, leaving the door wide open. I expected one of them to chase me. When I looked back to the room from my car, I could see that one of them simply closed the door. I drove for a while, eventually stopping to sleep in my car. I woke up with a terrible backache. I cut my trip a few days short, and I haven't been back since.
Well, okay. If you haven't guessed, that statement was also not anything paranormal or anomalous. That was just a sex thing. A kink, if you will. Pretty sure it was just a BDSM party. Now, something like that is perfectly fine when it's between 2 or more consenting adults, and don't worry, we know that they were all consenting. Giles Clark unknowingly reported this to us, and we followed up on it with a bit too much force than necessary, and we may have checked if the dominatrix, in this scenario, was mind-controlling them with brainworms. Of course, we found nothing in her head except some extreme irreversible damage to her skull, which was probably there before we found her. When we realized that the incident was not at all spooky, we let Mr. Clark off with a stern warning, and a slap on the wrist. But not too hard, of course. But, yeah, let's move on to something else. Here's another tape. Let's just,
So there I was, in my roommate's bedroom. The walls and floor and ceiling, somehow, was all brown! The whole room was just covered in shit!
Whoa, okay, so that was also not spooky and also a kink. You know what? I'll just sort through all this stuff to check for anything that isn't kink-related. Aha! Okay, here we go. This is a 000 call that was intercepted by the Strangeman Association on the scratched-out date of June in the year of our Lord, Inksmudge 80. I'll just pop that in here and...
You have dialed 000. Do you need police, fire, or ambulance?
Help. Police, I've been attacked, I think. Please send someone quickly.
Calm down. Please, tell us your location.
I'm in a phone booth in, Livingston, Kiev. Just help me, please.
It's all right. We're sending someone right now. Just try and calm down. What's your name?
Jack Huckaby. I'm a radio host for the... Oh, God.
Listen to me, Jack. It's going to be okay. We're sending someone right now. Just hold...
Hello? Hello?
What is your name?
What? I've told you, it's Jack. Jack Huckaby.
No, there is no Jack Huckaby.
Excuse me?
A mistranslation. There are several Jack Huckabys in the world. You are not one of them.
This is ridiculous. I'm Jack Huckaby.
Where are you right now?
Matala, Yukon. I've told you this already.
No, you told us that you were at Livingston, Kiev, which is not a place. Livingston is a town in Australia, and Kiev is a city in Ukraine. The other location you have provided is equally wrong. Where are you?
I don't know, okay? I'm in an old-ass phone booth. I'm trying to look at signs, and it's all just not working. Are you going to help me? Because if you're not, then I can just...
Do not hang up the phone. Describe the encounter. Describe what attacked you.
I was grocery shopping at night, and this man walked up to me. The man was strange, weird, quite possibly the strangest man I ever met. I can't remember any details of his face or body except for the fact he was wearing a bowler hat. He walked up to me in the aisle and said, "You must be Jack Huckaby, the radio host." He stretched out his hand as though he wanted me to shake it. "I'm a big fan," he said with a smile, which is when I saw that he had too many teeth. I was somewhat flattered and equally weirded out by this guy. I was told repeatedly by my producers that barely anyone listens to me, that there were more popular national radio shows, so to have a fan, a real fan, I didn't even notice that I hadn't even said a word to him. How would he have known who I was? I didn't want to be rude, so I motioned to shake his hand. He grasped mine, and he felt like... It felt like everything. And the world around me seemed to melt into a congealed splotch on the wall of eternity. Like I was being eaten alive by something that didn't need teeth. Calling the experience horrifying misses the point. It was a process of nature, like a mouse being eaten alive by a vulture. No sense, no mercy, no virtue, just food. I did eventually rip my hand away from him. I could see immediately that we weren't in the fluorescent-lit building of the local grocery shop. We were now in a dark alley. My bag of groceries lay next to me. I was surprised I didn't drop it earlier. When I looked at my hand, I couldn't see it, but I knew it was there. My hand was hypothetical. I could see that the strange man who had sent me into that nightmarish experience was startled. He had not expected me to break away that easily. He began approaching me, getting closer with his hand aimed at my throat. When he got close enough, I socked him with a right hook in the face. He stumbled over. I think I broke the closest thing he had to a nose, but instead of the red I expected, a cold gray began to pour slowly from his orifice. An empty gray that seemed to glow slightly. It wasn't enough. He was off kilter, but still seemed to be approaching me. So I picked up a nearby rusty pipe and I slammed it right into his almost head, knocking him to the ground. He wasn't breathing, but he never breathed in the first place, so I did it again, and again, and again, until the gray liquid covered the pipe and my body, until I was sure it couldn't move. I was still lost, so I had to call someone. Anyone. Well, will anyone hear me? Will anyone care?
That's quite enough. At least we know the story extractor works over the phone.
Can you please help me? Please.
You can calm down now. Help has already arrived. Jock.
Hey, what are you doing? Stop! What? It's over? Oh, it's over. Okay. Update. The Mistakes Department has confiscated the box of mistakes and is now preparing to burn it, along with the 48 other boxes across the association. Along with the burning, we stand in unison and solidarity as we repeat to ourselves and others, it was her fault. I wasn't thinking straight. I'm a different person now. It wasn't that bad. At least I admit to my flaws. Ooh, gotta remember that next time. He does the same thing, and it's fine. As the boxes of reminders of the terrible things we are is burned and we forget. Never to talk about it again, out of shame or out of relief. This has been the Strange Men's No Access Radio, and I've been Jock Tuckaby, still a famous person. Remember that memory is a curse to be lifted. And stay tuned for silence and more crickets than you would expect. Good night. This episode of The Strange Men's No Access Radio was written, edited, and directed by Lachlan Millard. This episode featured Yasir Ayubi as Jiles Clark, Tara Francis as the 000 operator, and Ryder Gavin as Jock Tuckaby. Thanks for listening.